Welcome to another deep dive with us. We're going to be taking a look at transformers and rectifiers, India Limited. You might know them better as TRIL. And we've got their FY24 annual report and Q1 FY25 earnings call, transcript, and presentation to go through. So by the end, you'll have a really solid grasp of their business model, their market position, and what their future might look like.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Let's kick things off with some background, shall we? So TRIL, they've been around since 1981, and they've become the biggest private sector transformer manufacturer in India. That's got to be tough to pull off.
It's not easy. It's pretty impressive, yeah. What I think is really interesting is that they haven't just focused on like one type of transformer. They do a whole range from the massive power transformers, the ones handling 500 MVA and 1200 kV, all the way to the smaller distribution transformers and also the more specialized ones.
They've got one for every need, huh?
They do.
Can you break down their different segments for us?
Absolutely. Okay, so picture TRIL's business model like a three-legged stool. You with me?
I'm following.
So the first leg, the one holding most of the weight, that's their core revenue generator. That's the sale of transformers and reactors.
Yeah.
This is the heavy-duty stuff, the backbone of power grids and industrial processes.
Makes sense.
Second leg, we've got service income. This is their steady earner, keeps the cash flowing and, strengthens their customer relationships.
Got it.
And then the third leg is a bit of a mix. It's scrap sales, trading goods, and support services.
So they're not just selling the hardware. It's a whole ecosystem.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned transformers for specific applications. What are some examples of those?
Oh, there are a few. They make furnace transformers. Those are essential for industries like, steel and aluminum production. They also make transformers specifically for locomotives.
That's pretty neat.
Right. And of course, with the world moving towards green energy, they're producing transformers for solar power installations and even green hydrogen projects.
Wow. Sounds like they're on top of their game when it comes to the energy sector. What's the outlook for the transformer industry overall?
Well, globally, it's looking like steady growth, which, mirrors the global economic outlook. But the really exciting areas are those niche segments, like dry-type transformers and electrolyzers. These are crucial for integrating renewable energy sources into the grid.
So the push for renewables is actually driving demand for these specific transformers?
Exactly. And this trend is very noticeable in India. They've got big plans for renewable energy, upgrading their power infrastructure, expanding their railways, even supporting data centers. All of that needs transformers.
That's a lot of transformers.
It is. And to add to that, India is the third largest electricity producer and consumer globally. So that demand...
Now we're going one way.
Up, exactly.
Sounds like a lot of opportunity for companies like TRIL. But they're not the only ones, right? What's the competition like?
Oh, they've got some big names to contend with. But in terms of capacity, TRL is actually the second largest transformer manufacturer in India.
So they're up there.
They are, but they're going up against companies like ABB India Limited, Siemens Limited, and Voltamp Transformers Limited.
Those are giants. How does TRL manage to hold their own against them?
Well, they've got a few tricks up their sleeve. First off, strategic partnerships. Like their joint venture with JSC Zaporozhye Transformator in Ukraine.
What does that give them?
It gives them access to the technology for those high-demand 765 kV transformers.
Wow.
We're talking serious power here.
Yeah.
Then they've got a technology licensing agreement with Fuji Electric Co., Ltd., which covers high-voltage transformers and reactors.
So they're keeping up with all the latest tech.
Exactly. They have to. But their edge isn't just about technology. They've built a strong domestic customer base, too. It's all about those long-term relationships. Yeah. Really important in this industry.
So they've got the brains and the charm.
You could say that.
Now, every business has its risks, right? What are some things that could be a challenge for TRIL?
Well, the auditors have pointed out a couple of concerns. One is the recoverability of trade receivables. Will they actually be able to collect all the money their customers owe them?
I see. And with those state electricity companies being big customers, that could be an issue.
It could be. The other concern is about contingent liabilities. These are those potential obligations, from ongoing legal stuff and claims.
Always a bit of a wild card.
You got it. The auditors are basically saying, hey, this could impact TRL's finances.
Got it. Let's shift gears a bit and talk corporate governance. How does TRL approach that?
They seem to be taking it pretty seriously. Their annual report has a whole section dedicated to it, outlining their commitment to ethical conduct, compliance, all that good stuff. They even have a whistleblower policy to encourage transparency.
That's a good sign. Speaking of changes, any big shakeups in the leadership team?
There have been some changes, yeah, but mostly to do with how much the top guys are getting paid. Mr. Jitendra Mamtora, he's the chairman and whole-time director, and Mr. Satyen J. Mamtora, he's the managing director, they both had their compensation packages revised, starting April 1st, 2024.
Interesting. Now, what about sustainability? Is that on their radar?
Oh, yeah, for sure. They have a whole report dedicated to it. It outlines their commitment to environmental and social responsibility. They're doing stuff for energy and water conservation, waste management, employee well-being, you name it.
That's good to hear. It sounds like they're making a genuine effort.
They are.
Now, let's talk growth potential. What's the future looking like for TRL?
Well, things are looking pretty good. They're riding the wave of growth in the Indian and global transformer market, and of course, that focus on renewable energy is giving them a boost.
It is a big deal these days.
Huge. Their strategy is all about capacity expansion, getting into new markets. And they've secured a lot of funding to do it. 999 crores through a qualified institutional placement.
That's a mouthful.
It is. But it's a lot of money.
It is.
And a big chunk of that, 600 crores, is going straight to capacity expansion.
They must be pretty confident about the future demand.
They seem to be.
And what about recent developments in their business?
Oh, they've been busy. Their first quarter of FY25 was really impressive. They got a ton of new orders, 698 crores worth.
That's a good quarter.
It is, and that includes their first ever order for 193 MVA single-phase STATCOM transformers. Those are used to stabilize power grids, especially ones with a lot of renewable energy.
So they're really establishing themselves in that space.
They are, and their export orders are nothing to sneeze at either. 161 crores worth in just one quarter.
Going global.
Exactly. And on top of all that, they're aiming to be net debt-free in the coming years.
Now, that's a goal.
It shows they're thinking long-term.
They are. It seems like TRL has a lot going for it. A solid business model, a good track record, and they're in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's dig a little deeper into some specific things about their business.
Sounds good. What do you suggest we focus on?
Well, we talked about TRL's growth potential, but what really makes them stand out from the competition?
Yeah, that's a good point. What sets them apart?
Their expertise in high-voltage transformers. That's a big one.
Yeah, we touched on that.
It's not just about building big transformers. It's about being in a niche market.
Yeah, high barriers to entry.
Exactly. Not everyone can do it.
And they've really embraced it, haven't they? In their annual report, they said they can produce power transformers up to 1,200 kV class.
That's a lot of power.
Enough to electrify a small country.
Pretty much, yeah. And when you think about India's plans for their power grid and meeting that growing demand,
They need those high-voltage transformers.
they do.
So TRL's expertise there gives them a big advantage in India. But what about internationally?
Oh, totally. Remember we were talking about India becoming a preferred supplier of transformers for places like the US and Europe?
Yeah.
Well, TRL's high-voltage capabilities make them a strong contender globally.
They're not just thinking local.
Nope, they're aiming for global dominance.
Ambitious. Okay, so besides high-voltage transformers, what else gives them an edge?
One thing that's often overlooked is their focus on design customization.
So they're not just offering off-the-shelf products.
Nope. In an industry where a lot of companies offer standardized stuff, TRIL is willing to create bespoke solutions.
Tailored to the client's needs.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, tell us what you need and we'll build it.
That's a great approach. And it must help build strong customer relationships.
Absolutely. And let's not forget their manufacturing facilities, state-of-the-art.
Yeah, they've invested a lot in that.
They have. They understand that transformers are critical components.
Any failure can have a huge impact.
Absolutely. Blackouts, disruptions, you name it.
So their focus on quality and precision manufacturing is key.
It's a big differentiator for sure.
Okay, so to recap, TRIL's competitive advantage comes from their expertise in high-voltage transformers, their design customization capabilities, their commitment to high-quality manufacturing, and their customer-centric approach.
You got it.
That's quite a package.
It is, and these strengths, along with their partnerships, have really helped them establish themselves.
But like we said, every company has challenges.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We already talked about those auditor concerns with trade receivables and contingent liabilities. But what other factors could impact their growth?
Well, competition's always a factor.
Of course.
The transformer market, both domestically and internationally, is only getting more competitive. New players popping up all the time. and existing ones are stepping up their game.
So TRL needs to stay ahead of the curve.
They do. They need to keep innovating and differentiating themselves.
It's a constant race.
It is. And then there's the issue of raw material prices.
Always fluctuating.
Always. Transformers need a lot of copper, steel, and other commodities.
And if those prices go up,
their production costs go up too.
So they need to be smart about managing that.
Exactly. Hedging strategies, supply chain management, all that good stuff.
Proactive and adaptable.
You got it.
And what about regulations?
Oh, that's a big one. The power sector is heavily regulated. Any changes in those policies can have a big impact on TRIL.
They need to stay informed and be ready to adapt.
Absolutely.
And let's not forget the overall economic climate.
Right. If the global economy slows down,
demand for transformers could drop.
Infrastructure projects might get delayed or even canceled.
So TRL's growth plans could be affected.
They need to keep an eye on those economic trends and adjust accordingly.
So they need to be flexible.
Flexibility is key. They might need to diversify their product portfolio, explore new markets, or look at ways to cut costs.
Weather the storm.
Exactly.
So while TRL has a lot going for it, there are some potential challenges too.
There are competition, raw material prices, regulations, and the global economy. All things to keep in mind.
But they've shown they can be resilient and adaptable.
They've overcome challenges before, and they're not afraid to evolve and innovate.
That's a good sign.
It is. They seem to have a strong leadership team, and they're strategic thinkers.
Essential qualities for any company these days.
Absolutely. They focus on their customers, they stay ahead of the tech curve, and they're committed to sustainability.
That gives them a solid base for future growth.
It does.
Now, before we move on, let's talk about that QIP again. Raising 999 crores is impressive.
It is. It shows that investors have confidence in them.
And they're using a big chunk of that for capacity expansion.
600 crores worth. They're clearly expecting demand to keep growing.
They are, and they want to be ready for it. And their commitment to becoming net debt-free is another good sign.
It shows they're managing their finances well.
Which is always reassuring for investors.
Always. Now let's look at some of the latest developments in their business.
Their Q1 FY25 performance was really strong.
They had a great order inflow.
698 crores worth.
And remember that maiden order for StatCom transformers?
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's a new product segment for them.
And their export orders are growing too.
161 crores in just one quarter. They're making a name for themselves internationally.
And they got approval from PGCIL for reactors at their Changudar testing facility.
Yeah, that expands their testing capabilities.
Another competitive advantage.
Exactly.
It seems like CHOIL's doing everything right.
They're getting new orders, expanding their products, strengthening their infrastructure, and going global.
It's a recipe for success.
It certainly seems that way.
It's inspiring to see how far they've come.
It is. They've got a great story, a strong team, and a clear vision.
They're definitely a company to watch.
Okay, so let's sum up what we've learned about Trillin.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways?
They've got a lot to think about moving forward.
Right. It's not all smooth sailing.
Not exactly. I mean, think about the global shift towards renewable energy.
Yeah, that's a huge opportunity for them.
It is. They're already in a good position to meet that demand.
They are. We talked about their investments in transformers for solar and wind power. And even those StatCom transformers for grid stability.
Right. But what if something new comes along, some brand new energy storage technology that changes everything?
Disrupts the whole industry.
Exactly. Could Trillel adapt fast enough?
That's a great question.
And then there's competition.
Always a factor.
We talked about ABB and Siemens.
The big guys.
But what about those new startups? The ones popping up with specialized tech in the renewable energy space?
TRL could acquire some of them, couldn't they?
They could. That's one way to get ahead.
Get access to new tech and expertise.
Exactly. But merging companies always has its challenges.
Different cultures, different ways of doing things.
It's a risk.
And then there's geopolitics.
Oh, yeah, that can't be ignored.
We talked about India becoming a big player in the transformer market.
Right, but things can change quickly on the global stage.
Trade wars, sanctions, political instability.
All of that could affect TRL's exports and their growth.
And what about talent?
Finding and keeping the best people is crucial.
Especially as they grow and expand.
Absolutely. They need skilled engineers and managers.
People who can adapt to new challenges.
Exactly. And that kind of talent is in high demand.
So TRL needs to make sure they're competitive.
They do good salaries, benefits, a positive work environment.
It all matters. So as you can see, there are a lot of factors that could impact TRL's future.
There are both opportunities and challenges.
And that's what makes this so interesting.
It does. We've given you the information. Now it's up to you to analyze it and form your own conclusions.
Exactly. Whether you're an investor, a competitor, or just someone who's curious about the energy sector, think about what we've discussed. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions about TRIL's future.
That's the best way to learn.
It is. And who knows, maybe you'll see something we missed.
Oh, it's a possibility.
So we've reached the end of our deep dive into transformers and rectifiers, India Limited. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, from their history to their growth potential.
And everything in between.
Their competitive advantages, the risks they face, their commitment to sustainability.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has. And TRL's story is far from over.
They're a company to watch.
Absolutely. So stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
See you next time.